the last time. Say goodbye for the last time. And with a sigh and these tears that I cry, oh my friend, oh my friend, oh my friend. Say hello to the sorrow. Say hello to the sorrow. And with a sigh and these tears that I cry, oh my friend, oh my friend, oh my friend.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the Last Goodbye Dashbook Heroes of America. I'm your host, Johnny Pizza Fratangelo, along with my executive producer, Nicole Fratangelo Barati, and our two commentators, Ray the Snigray Snitchler and Ralph Narciso. Today, we're going to pick up on the show where we left off. It's going to be part two, because a lot of people out there are suffering with the same illnesses that some of our we have, okay? It's cancer, autism, lupus, and heart disease. So we're going to start off with Ralph. Okay, Ralph, and tell your story.
Yeah, well, the thing with the cancer was very funny, just the way it was found. It was back in probably, so let's see, 10 years, almost 10 years. This is the 10th year, so that was 2013. And, of course, I worked with John at General Motors, and they closed General Motors. So for all those years, they closed it in 1997. I was working with my brother who does HVAC installations, okay? And we were doing good. Everything was great. But, of course, you had the crash of the financial crash in 2008, which impacted everybody. We had oh God, we were working with 10, 15 different contractors building new homes. And it was like hectic. It was like every day we were busy working all the time. Then all of a sudden the bottom dropped out. So he hooked up with a couple other people and it was doing good for a while. Then all of a sudden it got really slow. And as you know, if you watch the last show, I have a son who suffers from autism. And he lived with me for a long time. He lived with me actually from about 1994 till about that year, around 2013, actually 2012. So in 2012, he was just acting out a lot and getting, very, he wanted to be independent. My daughter had moved out of the house and he sees these things. He's a middle of the road on the autism spectrum. He's highly intelligent in other ways. And he knew that, his daughter, his sister had gotten her own place and he kind of wanted to be independent himself. So he was acting out so bad. I mean, I had to physically restrain him so many times because he would want to either hurt himself, which is called SIB, self-injurious behavior, or he'd be wanting to hurt other people like myself or strangers. I mean, one time I had to go to traffic court. So I'm sitting in traffic court. I had to bring him with me because I had nobody, just to stay with him. So I'm sitting in traffic court and he always wore a Yankee hat. So he's sitting there, we're sitting all in court, and the judge is going through the cases. All of a sudden, the court officer yells, "Take off your hat." And I was like, who the hell is this guy talking to? He goes, "Take off your hat," like yelling. The whole freaking courtroom was like, what? What are you doing? All of a sudden, I realized he's talking about my son. So if you know anything about autistic people, a lot of them are have OCD. They got to have every routine the same way all the time, and that hat had to be on his head. So I said, Jonathan, you got to take off your hat. So he goes and takes off his hat, and all of a sudden, about not even 5 minutes later, he gets really pissed off, and he starts striking the guy in front of him, a complete stranger. He starts hitting him. So I said, Jonathan, you can't, I'm grabbing him. And the guy turned around. I said, I'm sorry. He's autistic. He doesn't understand when they yelled at him to take off his hat. And luckily, the guy understood, and the court officer didn't do anything. Because, I mean, you do something like that in the middle of a courtroom, you know, next thing you know, they're calling the police. And that's all I would have needed. So I walked him out of there. And that's what led me to seek, you know, having him placed in a IRA. They call it, that stands for intellectual something, residential housing, whatever, like that. So it's a group home. So, you know, we went through a couple of places that were horrible, and finally we found this beautiful place up in Stanfordville, which is about 45 minutes north of where I live. And it's a beautiful log cabin out in the woods. Is just gorgeous. He's got his own master bedroom suite with his own shower and walk-in closet. I mean, you couldn't ask for more. So I got him placed there. But the problem with that is that when someone who is receiving Social Security disability lives with you, you are their alternate payee. So all the money that he got from that, I got. And of course, I used it for both of us. And I used it for living expenses, like paying my mortgage and paying for food and paying for electric bills and everything else. But when he left, that was gone. So now all I was left with is working with my brother with dribs and drabs, and getting my pension from General Motors, which, because they closed the plant so early, I ended up only getting qualified for 20.8 years, which is hardly anything. Right. So, yeah. So it was pretty horrible. But so that made me, I told my brother, I said, look, I got to get a regular job. And all the years that I worked with my brother, he always warned me. He said, don't ever do this work for anybody else but me. And he knew, because he's worked for many, many contractors, and they're cutthroat and they work you to the bone. So I couldn't do nothing. I needed a regular income, you know, a regular 8-hour day or whatever, and ended up, we'll get into that in a minute. So I looked around a couple of places, you know, nobody was hiring, nothing like that. So finally found this one guy called, I'm not going to name his name. Anyway, he hired me as a mechanic, and it was great. You know, in the beginning, it was just like my brother said, hard work every day. The first job he put me on with a partner was this old Drake boiler that had, like, I don't know, 16 water jackets. And John will tell you, John's been in the business, in the trade, many, many years, working on these old boilers that are rust buckets to get that thing out. And it was an old farmhouse too, down in the basement, cold, damp, everything. You have to cut it up. You have to cut all the rods that hold the jackets together, and they're heavy as shit. Excuse my language. Anyway, so that's just I'm trying to paint a picture here for everybody in the audience, and for all my my friends here, that it's hard work, real hard work. This guy did everything. He did heating, air conditioning. He did plumbing. We took out old oil tanks, dirty work every day. You know, like no way did you work 8 hours. It was an average day was 10 hours. And on top of that, he was such a particular person. He wanted everything done to the letter. All right. And so I worked with him for about, let's say about 8 months, 8 or 9 months before this incident happened. So he puts us on this job, It's an old farmhouse. Once again, this built in maybe the 1700s. Who the heck knows? It was really old. And it's up in Amenia, New York, which is out in the boonies in Dutchess County. And we're putting in a 90% efficient, like a super efficient boiler. And what that does is it's recirculating the exhaust gases. So it has to have an intake where it intakes outside air, and it has to have an exhaust. That exhaust vents the fumes, which end up being just like vapor at that point, because it reburns the spent fuel, you know. So to do that, the only way to get these two pipes, the intake and the out and the vent out, was to drill 6-inch holes in the plate that holds the entire house up. The what would you call it, John? The base plate of the house.
You mean the footing?
You know what I'm talking.
Well,
What's that? Not the footing. You know, the plate that all the studs are nailed to. They call it something. They call it it's a plate, but they call it like a base plate or whatever. So this plate sits on the.
I used to call them fish.
What's
plates.
that?
Fish plates.
Okay, so that's as good a name as any. So that plate sits on. What's that?
No, go ahead. No, it's all right.
Well, that plate sits on the foundation, which in this case is like all rock because it was built back in the 1700s or early 1800s, whatever. And this plate was about 8 inches high by about a good 8 inches thick of solid pine. Like they got it from the property. You know, they cut down a tree and they made this thing. So my boss wants a perfect 6-inch hole through this damn thing. And John will tell you, with a hole saw. He gives me a hole saw that's got really fine teeth on it. It's not a coarse hole saw. So it's to go through that kind of a wood is very hard and time consuming. And I'm using a right angle drill, which for the audience, I know John knows what it is. Maybe Ray does too. I'm not sure. But a right angle drill is a long drill, maybe about 18 inches long. And then it has a right angle on, real heavy duty, has a right angle on it. And on that right angle is the actual chuck that holds whatever drill you want to put in it. So the drill is drilling this way into the wood, and then the handle is at a right angle to the chuck that's holding the drill. And it rotates, clockwise or counterclockwise. It's clockwise. And you got to hold this thing so it's bucking like this all the time while it's in the wood.
It will break your wrist if you're not ready for it.
Oh yeah, break your wrist. It's crazy. And it was a rigid.
It's gonna knock you out, hit you in the jaw. Yeah.
Well, it didn't knock me out, but we'll get into that.
Right.
So
those drills have like a lot of power, right? Are they electric or they're gas?
Oh yeah,
electric.
Yeah, it's like. Go ahead, John.
No. He just said it's electric. Yeah, but you have to make sure you are going in straight with your blade, with your bit, because if it's cocked, it's going to catch. And what he said, if he's drilling a 6-inch hole, okay, I mean your bit is pretty big, and it's probably, I would say, if a 6-inch bit, probably 2 inches wide. Okay, so every so often you're going to have to stop.
So you're talking about like a real industrial drill, like that.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna have to stop.
Yeah. Very.
Take the bit, take the drill out of the hole, and get like a screwdriver and a little hammer, and you got to knock that piece of wood out because it's only going to go so far. Okay. Then you got to start all over again. And once you start all over, that's when you really got to go because it has a trigger that's touchy, so you can actually start off slow, with quick finger presses, and you get the drill to go in nice and straight again, because if you don't, it's going to cock and it's going to come back at you. Okay, Ralph, keep going.
Right. So 100% right. Everything you said is 100% true. And it's only, the drill is only maybe like the chuck and everything gives you like maybe 3 or 4 inches. So you got to put an extension on it too once you start going deep into the hole. But I hadn't gotten far yet. I wasn't even at the point where I had to take it out and chop the wood out. I was just starting the whole thing, just starting it. And I got in about a quarter of an inch, maybe a half an inch deep when this happened. So this drill is probably like a half horsepower for electric motor. That's pretty powerful. And it turns very slowly, but it's still, you know, it's binding because the saw blade was fine, you know, because this guy wants this perfect hole. He didn't want no rough edges, nothing. And in retrospect, I think I should have not listened to him and just went in with a couple of regular drills, made like a little outline, chopped it out, you know, and then finished it off, you know, nice and smooth. But I didn't. I took his advice, and because he was such a pain and he was such a anal about it, so I'm over there with it, and it's a hot day. You know, working in t-shirts, sweating like crazy. And the drill is to my right, like this. So it's going in straight, and the handle's to my right with my right hand on it. And my left hand is guiding the chuck in like this, right? So as it's bucking and bucking, I'm looking at it, and like John said, if you're off a little bit, the whole hole is going to be crooked, and that's going to be a problem because the pipe has to fit in nice and tight and straight. If the hole is on an angle, you got to start over again because you've now made it on an angle, and that's what I was worried about, that I wasn't going in straight. So I'm looking at it, and I'm going, you know, doesn't look like it's going straight. Then the little birdie in my head is saying, don't look down, because I'm like crouching. So the whole thing is about, you know, if this is my chin, it's at least waist height. So it's about that much difference. And I couldn't see from where I was. I had to look down like that, which I kept telling myself, don't do. Right. Sure enough, I looked down, and as I did it, I unconsciously released the strength in my right hand because I was concentrating on something else. My mind disconnected my right hand, and I let the drill come up. And it came up, it hit me in my jaw, in my cheek, broke my eye socket in 3 places, which I didn't know. All of a sudden, I felt it. I was like in shock. It went bam, like a prize fighter hit me right in the face. I got up, and all of a sudden, like 2 seconds later, a fountain of blood, like a gusher, just came out of my nose. Because it hit here, it hit my nose, it hit my eye socket. I was in shock. So the guy that's working with me, he looks over and he goes, oh, I can just see by his face that this was not good. So he rushes over, he takes his shirt off and throws it at me to hold the blood from coming out. So that's the thing that started this whole thing. So then, you know, we're over there, you know, I said, I got to go to the hospital, you know, and they call an ambulance. I'm in Armenia, New York, which is in the boonies, like I said before. It took 20 minutes for the ambulance to get there. Then another 20-minute ride to the hospital. I get to the hospital, my blood pressure's through the roof. The woman was trying to calm me down. They took a quick x-ray, and they said it's broken. They stopped the bleeding. They referred me to a facial surgeon and an ear, nose, and throat doctor. He's the same doctor. He does plastic surgery, he does facial reconstruction. So he examines me when I get there, because I went right from the hospital there. They made an emergency appointment. And he's looking at it and going, okay, you know, there's a problem. There's a tendon that is attached to your bone that controls your eye movement from going up and down. He said, if that tendon is compromised, you have to have surgery within 3 days, because if you don't have it within 3 days, it's going to heal and your eye is going to constantly look down. You won't be able to look straight ahead with that eye. So I'm scared and crazy, right? So he sends me to an MRI place, like, you know, a CAT scan. They do the CAT scan. I go home and I'm just swollen up and everything. He just tells me to ice and everything. an hour later, he called me. He said, I looked at it. He said, you don't need the surgery, but I want you to come in. We want to examine it more closely. He said, do this, do that. I had to just keep it ice and everything. You can't put a cast on it. It just heals by itself. So then I made the appointment, come back in about 3 days. I come back and he's not there. The doctor's not there, but the PA is there, the physician's assistant. So he goes and examines me and examines everything. Now he's an ear, nose, and throat. So he's looking at he's going like this to my throat. He goes, you know, this is really big over here. He goes, let's do a scan. So first he does a scan. And he says, this is a regular CAT scan. I go back to him again. He goes, well, it just looks funny. He says, I want to do a guided needle biopsy of your thyroid. So I go to the hospital for that. Does a guided needle biopsy where they do a ultrasound of your neck. And one attendant is moving the thing around, and there's another attendant with a long needle. And they see what they want to get, and they look in there, and they go in with the needle all the way down into your thyroid, it's down here. So they take their sample, they send it for a biopsy. I have to go back in to the doctor again in like 3 days, and he goes, you have thyroid cancer. And I was like, what? He goes, you have thyroid cancer. He said, it's in the left nodule. No, it's a one nodule that we saw, but I think there's another one, and it's in the left hemisphere because the thyroid is like a butterfly. It's like this. So there's one side and the other side over here. So I said, what should I do? He said, do I have to do chemotherapy? Do I have to, no. He said, you have to do surgery. You have to have it removed. But I'm going to send you to a surgeon, and he'll make the decision whether to do it or not. So I go to this surgeon, and he says, well, he said I could do a partial and just take out the nodes, or I could do the whole thing. And he said, in my experience, I say, when in doubt, take it out. I said, okay, I'm good with that. Take the whole thing out, not just the half, not just the node, the whole thing. So I go into surgery. They schedule it for about 10 days later or something like that. I go into surgery. He's talking to me. He goes telling me the whole thing. I said, fine. Go into surgery. They remove the thyroid. And I'm in the room recovering, and I'm fine. I'm just a little groggy from the anesthesia. The nurse comes in and says, how do you feel? I said, I feel good. She said, well, if you feel good, you can go home. And really, she shouldn't have sent me home. She should have said, wait till you can eat something, stuff like that. So I go home. I tell my wife, at that time, she was my fiance. I tell her, I say, I'm hungry. What's there to eat? She said, well, we got, I can make you something. Or I said, we had some tiramisu. So I said, I want some tiramisu. I'm going to have that. Big mistake. First of all, I shouldn't have ate anything. I ate that. About 10 minutes later, I throw up from the anesthesia. So then I'm telling her, about 15, 20 minutes go by. I say, it feels like my throat is swollen up. She goes, no, it's just your allergies. Take your allergy medicine. I said, no, this is different. About 5 minutes passed by, and it feels like somebody's strangling me. It's like, and I'm going, I can't breathe. Call 911. She says, what? I said, call 911. I said, this is swelling up. I can't breathe. I'm like coughing on it like this. So they get the ambulance, comes, they rush me to the hospital, get there, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, I'm yelling at them I want them to intubate me because I can't breathe. And they're like, well, we can't do that yet. We have to take a scan. I said, take the goddamn scan. I'm like screaming at them. So I said, I can't, they say, you got to lay down. I said, I can't lay down. I'm like this, in the CAT scan thing, right? So they scanned it, and they said, we're going to put you out. We're going to intubate you because you got internal bleeding. And that's the last thing I remember. Then everybody else tells me they call my surgeon, who's in New York, in Manhattan, with his parents. And he's, I believe he was Chinese. They had come from China to visit him. And they tell him, you got to get up here right away and operate on this guy he's internal bleeding. It's got to be stopped. He wouldn't come. He wouldn't come. Do you believe that? He would not come. He was saying, oh, my parents are here, blah, blah, blah. See if you can get somebody else. They asked every surgeon that was in that hospital who was available and in the next hospital over, because there's 2 hospitals close to each other in Poughkeepsie. Nobody wanted to touch me because you know why? They don't want to have a lawsuit. You know, they don't want to touch somebody else's work. Finally, this is where the story gets a little sketchy for me. My wife would tell me, somebody, the nurse that was attending me, who happened to be an angel sent from heaven, she called the doctor and she got him to come. What she said to him, no one knows, and you'll never know. But whatever she said, he came. Right. And he opened me up again. They took out he said, I took out a Coke can full of blood. He said, I couldn't see anything bleeding, but I cauterized everything. And that was it. I was in intensive care for about 4 days with the drain in me and everything. I couldn't eat solid food. It was just nuts. And then finally they took the drain out. They said, nothing's coming out anymore. You're fine. Go home. And what an experience. So, you know, I had to keep getting ultrasounds for this thing. I have to be on synthroid hormone for the rest of my life. Right. And then in the beginning of that, with the hormones, they gave me too much. And my heart was racing out of my chest. And I kept calling him, going like, why am I? So the doctor tells me, you got to go see a cardiologist. I'm like, what? I said, what do I go see? Nothing's ever been wrong with my heart. She said, please, you got to go see a cardiologist. So I said, all right. So I go to see the cardiologist. He takes all the tests and everything, all the heart tests. Everything's fine with my heart. So he refers me back to the endocrinologist, and she realizes then that she gave me too much. She gave me too high a dose. So they cut down the dose. And since then, I've been through 2 or 3 endocrinologists. The one I got now put me on an even lower dose, which is just right. And now it's 10 years. 10 years. I just had my last ultrasound. It was clean. So I'm 10 years cancer free. And my hormones are in good shape. So, you know, it's just a, you know, it's what I want to get back to before I end, let somebody else talk, is when I was there at the house when this happened with the thing, that's where divine intervention comes in. That's why I said this story is spiritual, because somebody who, my guardian angel, one of my relatives that have passed on, I don't know who it was, made that drill, made me bend down and made that drill hit me, because it sent me to the doctor who found the cancer. Exactly. And, you know, thyroid cancer, if it's not caught early, could be life-threatening. You know?
I was just going to say that. Deadly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could really,
that nurse must have told that doctor,
yeah,
if you don't get here, this guy's going to die in his own blood. You better get here right away. Because you would have.
Whatever she said.
Drowned in your own blood.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was crushing my breathing tube because it was filling up my chest cavity. It's crazy.
You could have even choked to death on your blood. You know,
right?
I mean, you know, within time, you know, if you didn't make it to the hospital,
anything could have happened, Ray. And it's just a whole thing on people. The difference between people who take ownership of a problem in their job and those who don't. Yeah. The doctor didn't take ownership, but the nurse did. And the nurse, and God, you know, God is my witness. I trust nurses any day over doctors. Yeah. The nurses know everything. Yeah.
Yep.
And she was an angel. I wanted, I'm getting real emotional. I wanted my wife to get her an angel pin. We couldn't find one. But I told her, I said, you were my guardian angel. The person who made the drill hit me, whoever that was, it was a conglomeration of divine intervention here. Why was that nurse there? You know what I mean?
You know what, Ralph? Listening to your story makes me think of, like, I really believe that God said, so, like, it's no coincidence that nurse got, convinced this doctor, whatever she told him, right? So
Yeah.
my point is like, there's a tragedy there, and she saw it, and she probably said to him, look, this is a little bit more complicated than you at your party type of thing. And you know what? Maybe if it was another nurse other than the nurse that, got a hold of that doctor, you wouldn't be on the show telling your story.
Right.
That's right.
I
believe.
And that's what the scary thing is that your faith is in their hands. Your destiny is in their hands.
Right.
And that's what's scary about your story. I mean, thank God it was a blessing that she saw this and, she did what she had to do.
Right. Well, her training and her experience, she knew that this was a serious problem, and that without intervention, I was going to, have something happen with my heart. My organs could start shutting down. You don't know.
Right.
So
right.
she knew. Yeah. So she got him to come.
Yeah, no, whatever she told him, some things are better not said. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And we could talk about this for hours. We'll never know. But whatever she said, maybe who knows what she promised them or what she said. Maybe she said to him, you ain't going to get paid this week. Whatever she told him, she told him.
Yeah, they could stop his approval to work there, if he refused to come, and he would, so he'd be in deep shit for that. But
yeah,
it was a horrifying thing to go through, but I thank God that he was there for me, and watched over me.
So, Ralph, did you go through any like radiation or chemo or anything like that, or?
No. What they do for when you have a thyroid cancer, what they might do in some cases is they might give you oral or intravenous radiation, like a radioactive intravenous, so it goes through your whole system. But in my case, it wasn't necessary because my tumors, and then they also found tumors on the other side too. When they did the pathology report, all the tumors had very defined edges. So that I know is a very good tumor, if there's any good tumor. That when they're very rough, the edges, that means they could be splitting apart and little cells could be getting out and going other places. And it was also, there's 3 types of cancer. Mine was probably the least aggressive of all of them.
Wow, a freak accident, like if that didn't happen, let's say you didn't go to work that day, or whatever, the story could have been totally different,
Right. It's fate. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, did they ever say to you how they might have come about, those tumors, maybe through the job, breathing in some kind of
anything? You don't know. A lot of times, thyroid cancer, in the old days when they never covered you when you did dental x-rays a lot of times, they say that could cause it. And, you know, when I was a young kid, they never had those big lead things they cover you with in the dentist's office when they take a x-ray. You know, like for men especially, they cover your whole body, and then they put a thing around here now for your thyroid to cover it from getting exposed to the x-rays. So yeah, it could be that. It could be any kind of environmental exposure would cause it.
I was just going to say, Ralph, another possibility could have been asbestos. You know, those old boilers had tons of asbestos way back when.
Yeah.
You know, they had no regulations like they do now, you know?
Oh yeah. Geez, my father used to wash his hands and his arms with benzene.
Yeah.
We all did.
You're gonna laugh at this, but my Uncle Sal, you know, God rest him, he used to tell people WD-40, WD-40, like, you know, like my fat Greek wedding used Windex for the pimple. He used to spray himself, his joints, and he'd say, no pain, no pain. Now you look at like what was in there, but he used to feel great. He used to swear by it, you know. He'd say, you don't need all these arthritis treatments, and that's just a load of shit. He goes, WD-40, you know, but you know, my grandmother, I remember one time she said, you know, we thought it was like the greatest thing, you know, when the toothpaste come with the what is that? The
yeah, I know what you're talking about. The fluoride.
Chloride. Yeah.
She goes, we used to wash our mouths out with that stuff and brush our teeth. This is not a big deal, you know. But you know, the old timers, they had their ways of doing things, you know, to fix themselves. You know, they didn't take pills like we do all the time. You know.
No, I know. It's something else too, because you just don't know. You don't know where you could pick these things up from environmentally. I mean, in General Motors, when we started, there wasn't a lot of safety procedures and stuff like that. It got there eventually, but there was people that were breathing in all kinds of stuff. And, you know, me and John, we worked in all kinds of environments.
I was just going to say, even the paint fumes from the car, you know, when they paint the cars, I mean, they, you know, exhaust when they, you know, there's a million different things, you know.
Oh yeah. My cousin Pat, John knows Pasquale, my cousin Pat, of course. And they used to have to go in, when the line would break down in the paint shop, they'd have to go into the ovens with the hot, and they were like 300 degrees. You know, they'd shut them off, but then they'd walk in there to see what's going on with the paint fumes and the oven so hot, and breathing in with no respirator on or nothing.
Right.
You know, it sounds like, you know, like those jobs are like those guys in Pittsburgh, you know, doing the steel, you know, real steel guys, you know, they were the toughest SOBs, you know, you couldn't break those guys, you know. Get a kid to do that today. There ain't nobody that's going to do that type of work, you know.
No way. What about the coal miner? What about the coal miners?
Oh yeah, you're right.
With the black lung.
Yeah.
Get that black lung disease, man. That's insane.
Yeah, I think it was only like the last 20, 25 years, you know, like they got those asbestos suits, and it's got to be removed a certain way. It's got to be bagged. There's like a million different things where back then they didn't know any better, you know?
Yeah.
I see ads all the time. Like if you're a shipman and you got asbestos, you know, I'm like, you know, never think, you know, but yeah, building a ship, you know, a lot of asbestos gas.
We were. I think you were with Ralph. You also. Well, we were certified for asbestos removal in General Motors.
Right.
When I was working downtown in Manhattan back in 1970 on the Astor Plaza, which is now the Liberty, not the Crown Plaza. It's called now the Crown Plaza. The concrete crown on top of them. They were spraying the ceilings with asbestos, spraying it like that, you know.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell a quick story, being that we're on this chemical poisoning stuff. All right. Me and my partner were working down Manhattan. This was probably around 1972, something like that, 73. And we were working in the Con Edison building. I forgot the area it was in, but it's a little uptown. And we were working on this top floor, which was it had to be at least 30 feet, 40 feet high. Okay. It was dark, and it was in the wintertime, so it was cold out. It was January, but it was over 100 degrees where we were working. So we were up on the lift, and I was doing the cutting. I was cutting with the torch, and I was cutting with the carbide bit with the saw, right? Steel pipe, probably about 6 to 8 inch pipe. And on top of the pipe was about 2 to 3 inches of dust that's probably been there for 200 years, you know. So anyway, I'm cutting it, and we go out for lunch because we're sweating from the heat. We're going out to lunch, and I was starting to get stomach pains. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm starting to get stomach pains, and I didn't think nothing too much of it. So, and every day it got worse. So I went to a doctor, and he said, "You got a duodenal ulcer." He was treating me. I said, I'm going to make it short. I said, "Look, doc," I said, "if my first wife didn't give me an ulcer, I don't have an ulcer. I'm going to tell you right now." Okay. So he said, "Well, you go home, take my Lantus, this and that." So the next day, I was doubled over. They had to come with the ambulance, and he come right. My sister worked for Einstein. She knew all these doctors, so she was like the assistant administrator. So he comes rushing in. Meanwhile, they got me. I looked like Howdy Doody, way I was taught with this pipe on, you know, this wire on this side. I was in a cardiac arrest. So he comes right. He thought he was gonna have to do surgery. Okay, so he comes in. They tried to get the tube down my nose. They can't get it down my nose because I got a very bad deviated septum. I've had it done a few times. I have a hard time doing it, right? So he said, "Well, I'll try it. Give me the baby one, what they give for babies." So he finally gets it down, right? So because they wanted to go in my stomach, this and that. So it ends up, make a long story short, that he doesn't do surgery. He goes home. And I'm there 3 days now. We're not eating, no eating, nothing. Okay, in the same cardiac ward there. All of a sudden, I was so hungry. Very rough. I was so hungry. I pulled all the tubes out. I'm on the floor, okay, and I'm with the robe on. I'm on the floor, and all of a sudden, this big, heavy-set nurse comes in. Okay, she goes, "Oh my God, what? What's the matter? What's the matter?" What? I looked up and I grabbed her. I said, "I'm starving. You guys are killing me in this hospital." So she went and got me a piece of toast, right? So to make a long story, and then I had a lot of people don't know. A lot of doctors don't even know this. Okay, it's called galvanized poisoning. Okay. If you burn galvanized, the fumes from the galvanized, that's why they even taught us in school in apprenticeship school to drink milk whenever we're going to burn galvanized, right? But I didn't because I don't like milk. It's got to be chocolate milk. I don't like milk. So that's what did. And what it does, it actually oxidizes your blood. And if you get it bad enough, okay, if you get it bad enough, they got to take all the blood out of you and strain it. You purify it, whatever they got to do, you know. So that's one disease that people out there don't know about, and a lot of doctors know about it. It's called galvanized.
So it poisons the blood.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
It oxidizes it. Yep.
So it's kind of like the old lead paint in the home, something like that, or?
Well, I don't know. No, because this comes from galvanized.
Okay.
The galvanized coating on the steel pipe. Okay. Once you put a flame to it, you know the what do you call it? The steam.
It oxidizes, right?
The vapor that come out. You know
the
what I mean?
vapor.
Right.
You're breathing it in, and if you don't coat your esophagus and your stomach, you're gonna get it, and it can't kill you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Wow. Yeah. So that you're in the trade that you're in. And you've been in, you know, you're exposed to a lot of that stuff. There's tons of asbestos. You go in houses today, it's still there.
Ralph, I got to tell you one more story. It's quick. This is general.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. You know, they called me for everything. You remember that?
Everything.
Yeah. Okay. So they had a leak in the body shop. Okay.
And I think I remember that.
Okay. They dug it up, and it was a pipe. And I've been in plumbing a long, long time. This is a pipe that I've never seen before. It was white. I was working with Bobby Benson. He was my partner. So I said, you know me. Yeah. I said, I always get down in there, right? I said, Bobby, don't go down here. I'll go down. All right. So he's standing up top, and I'm looking at it. I got the saw, big carbide. Now, this pipe had to be 10, 12-inch pipe, right? And it was about 3 inches thick, white. Okay. Now I got no mask on. I have nothing on, right? I start cutting. I couldn't see what I was cutting. So what I had to do, I had to cut down underneath the pipe. I mean, I cut an opening on top, okay, so I can see the flames from the saw, you know, the sparks from the saw to guide me. So I'm looking down. I got to go underneath the pipe. I couldn't, you know, I had to just reach around under it, and it's a big pipe. So I'm cutting and cutting. Meanwhile, all this white stuff is going around. But I have a habit whenever I do something, especially something that I'm not familiar with, that foreign to me, I don't breathe in. I take very, very shallow breaths. Okay.
Right.
So I cut the pipe, I cut a section out, and we fixed it. Okay. We take a sample. Pat Sweeney took a sample he was the safety guy, right? He takes a piece to this pipe to lab. It comes back 100% asbestos.
Oh,
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, right? So meanwhile, I was coming all over me, right? Bobby luckily was up top. Okay. So now I have a slip from the medical department that I was exposed, you know, to this 100% asbestos. I still have it.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
I would. I'm okay because I always have it checked out. But
right,
you're dealing with stuff, especially in plants that. They got so many different chemicals in so many different areas.
Yeah.
Like you work with the urethane, Ralph.
Hey, Pizza, how old would you say that the plant that you guys were working at? How old would you say?
That was from 19. That was from. It was
actually
1931.
Wow.
Yeah, but actually, Ray, they were building the Stanley steamer there. That was the first car they built in the late 1800s.
Oh, so it was more than I thought. Okay.
Yeah, but it was a GM, but it was a General Motors. It was a Chevrolet plant. I think from, like John said, from in the 30s, and then that's when
Fisher Body.
Fisher Body was separate, and General Motors bought them all and made them all one, you know, part of General Motors. Yeah, but you're right. That was
it had the caustic stuff underneath where the paint, where the spray from the paint. Okay, that vacuum, they sucked it down, and they had a lot of areas that caustic material, and the guys fell in. It would burn them.
Yeah, remember that guy? Yeah,
right off.
Yeah, Ray. We had one. Yeah, a lot of chemicals, and we had a guy. That guy, he was going to lunch, or he was on his break or something, and the caustic tanks. You know, a caustic solution is the opposite of acid. So if you got a pH scale, 0 is the combination of acid and a base, they call it. On the right side is acid. On the left side is the caustic or the base kind of solvent. So this one was all the way to the left, like the highest concentration of caustic, because it had to clean all this dried up paint that would accumulate. Oh, you got to see this stuff. Layers and layers of different colors. People make sculptures out of it now. But the caustic tank was covered by a metal like grate.
Yeah.
And this guy was walking. He walked on it. It must have been loose. He fell into it like up to his chest. They grabbed him real quick. He was screaming. They showered him off. They washed him off and everything. But he suffered burns all over his body. He lived, but he was badly injured.
Yeah. He did live. Was he a younger guy or an older guy, or? I wasn't working there when it happened, so I think he was middle-aged.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, oh my God, man, that's like horrible, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that the biggest fear of people dying is either getting burnt to death, drowning, or on fire. You
Well,
know,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
gotta.
I got all these stories are connected. I got to tell you something. We're talking about grapes. All right. I wasn't going to tell this today, but now we're talking about it. I might as well say it, but we used to have racks that double tiers high, and they had grates on top. And you put the materials on it. The baskets will go.
Mhm.
The forklift lift it up. So, like I said, I was in charge of the whole plant. Right. So they had something going on with some pipes and chassis. Right. So I go on the grate. Okay. Because I'm looking for the leak in the pipe, whatever it was at the time. The grate, I fall through. All right. Not my whole body, just my leg falls through it. Okay. And it kind of like scraped it, but it was no big deal. I didn't think nothing of it. Right. I started to have pain in my right foot, and I was limping. I was walking for a limp for quite a long time. And I thought it was just maybe I did something to my foot. So I'm trying to make it short. So anyway, it progressed and progressed and progressed. So one night, I went to, let's see, what happened first. I went to a specialist I went to my doctor first, right? And he looked at it. He looked like it was a little infected. This is I had gotten a couple of staph infections from my wounds in Vietnam.
Oh God!
And hospitalized. That's another story. But anyway, so that's what we were worried about. So he was treating me for staph and something else, but I won't tell you what it is yet. Something else, and luckily he was. So anyway, I said I went to a specialist in Jersey, and he did the Hotspan. His name was Dr. Hotspan. Never forget. He did the football plays for the Giants. He did all the injuries and stuff like that. So he looks at my foot, and he took an X-ray. He said, you got a fracture, in my foot. So he puts me in a hard cast. By the time I got home, I was in so much pain that I had to go back and I had to cut the cast off. So then I ended up going. What happened was Roger DuPont. Okay. He was a very good friend of mine. Vietnam veteran too, right? He happened to be on second shift. I was on day. His wife called me up one night. She said, John, the house is on fire. Right? I said, oh. So she hung up. So I run over there, right? The firemen were there. There was about 18 inches of water in the basement. And the pump, kicked out. It was dead, right? So I sent for my stepson at the time, Joey, to bring me my pump. So I pump it out. I rig up the pipe to go out the basement door, and because it's down below, and I pump it out. And fireman left now. It was late at night. It was because she called me up about 10, 11 o'clock at night. So now I'm wrapping everything up. Now I'm walking up the stairs. It was raining. It was raining that night. And everything's muddy. So I slip. Okay? By the time I got home, I could not walk. I crawled into my daughter's bedroom, okay? And not Nikki, Dawn, because Nikki wasn't born. She was born, but she was a baby. I crawled in and I told my daughter, I didn't tell my ex-wife. I said, look, you got to take me to the hospital. My leg is on fire. So I go to the hospital, make a long story, they take x-rays, and the technician said, look, you better go see a specialist because something's eating your bone. Okay. Now I don't get scared. Ever since Vietnam, nothing really scares me. Okay. I didn't think nothing. All right. So I go to my doctor. He said, what the intern in the hospital said, I think you got, no, because he said, what does it feel? I said, look, it feels like somebody's got a match on it. He said, it feels like it's on fire. I said, yeah. He says, you got osteomyelitis. Now, a lot of people don't know what osteomyelitis is. Okay. It's bad. It's what Mickey Mantle had. What it does, it eats your bone. Okay.
Oh.
Huh?
Oh.
It eats your bone. So now I had to go on a medication called vancomycin, which is very toxic. They were coming to my house 2-3 times a day. And Nikki will tell you, because she probably remembers this, because this happened in 1989. So she was like,
I do remember this. The nurses used to come every day.
Remember coming to the house? But they put the needle in.
Yep.
And I would do it myself after they put the thing in. And I twice a day, I give myself and wash it out with saline solution, and then give myself the medication. All right. But the veins would blow. They keep blowing. That specialist come in on the weekends, this and that. Anyway, make a long story short, I had to go on that medication for 6 weeks. But I went to this other doctor that was going by where I was living now. I said, Doc, look, this is crazy. Give me a central. Put it in my chest. I don't give a shit. I don't give a crap. Just put it in my chest. He said, no, John. And at the time, I was big. He says, you're too thick. He says, I ain't taking a chance of putting a needle through you. He says, I'll come to that. He said, come to the office. I'll start you up myself. So anyway, ended up going to the Bronx. Got this guy, Cabelli, Dr. Cabelli, orthopedic surgeon. He said, look, let's stop screwing around. Let's go in there. Because they would treat me for staph. They would treat me for hospital. They treat me for fracture, He said, let's stop screwing around. Let's go in and see what it is. So he goes in there, and sure as hell, I had osteomyelitis, okay? He cuts the bone out, piece of the bone out. Luckily, it was my little pinky toe, which doesn't have any cause, not making you go off balance, okay? And ever since then, I've been okay. But osteomyelitis, and when I did my shoulder, and the nurse found out it was osteomyelitis, they said, we got to do something different. I'll tell you that story. I'll tell you that another time. Okay. But,
I remember. I remember when you had it. When you were working at GM, I remember when you had that.
Yep. Remember it?
Yeah. Yeah. I had never heard of it before. No, wait.
A lot of people don't know. No. But the red lights go up when surgeons, heard that you had it, because you got to be careful. Because if you get a foreign thing, like when I have my joint replacements, if you get a foreign thing, it like metal, the bug inside you can be laying dormant, and it could wake it up, and it'll attack that new part of your body that you just put in there, like the titanium or whatever. And then they'd have to go in, undo it, cure you, and then do it again, whatever, So you gotta be very careful. That's why when I go to the dentist, I gotta take clindamycin, because antibiotics, because to keep from when you do teeth work,
getting an infection.
It could be, and it goes throughout your bones. But anyway, that's
crazy. You know what I was just thinking? We're all a mess. We're all a mess out here.
Well, that's only. I didn't even get into the other ones.
Forget it.
Wait, John definitely tops us, Ray.
I'm a walking hypochondriac, for Christ's sake. But when I heard about this bone eating thing, I'm like, oh man.
That's no joke. Just to piggyback, a friend of mine actually just went through that, but she had it in her jaw. That
very painful.
You thought I was suffering with the lupus? This poor girl's been going through it for about a year. She had half of her jaw removed. They had to take bone from her femur and replace it in her jaw. And she's still not right.
Yeah.
Nikki, is that common? Is this something common, or?
I don't think it's that common. No, it's just one of those freak things.
The virus, the osteovirus, lives in a part of your body where there's no oxygen. For some reason, your part of your body, part of your bone isn't getting oxygen. So one of the treatments that they come up with now is to administer oxygen in that area, which is supposed to help, heal it. You know what I mean? So it's a bad thing. But anyway, Ray, you want to tell? We had something really bad go on with you this week. You want to tell about that? We got time, Nikki? I don't want to cut Ray off.
Well, I mean, we can always pick up a part 3 with me and Ray, but we're coming up.
Yeah, we could pick up a part 3. I'm real interested in all your injuries, Pizza, because like after, I mean, even mine can't top that. I mean, that's like, I don't know, man. If I die, I want to, you want to die as something to talk about, not something that's like, I'm gonna walk.
The first 7 years, when I came back from Vietnam, the first 7 years, I was in the hospital 6 years in a row for different things.
Really?
After that, all these other things that happened, But
and if the audience, anybody out there who's watching has not read the book, The Last Goodbye, the part in there where you go to the hospital in Japan. And that is like so gripping, and anyone that that reads that who can't feel compassion for this man, John Frantangelo, and for any other person who has to go through that hell. I mean, when I read that section a lot, I reread it, you know, because it's so interesting, and you could feel the pain that he's experiencing the way you wrote it, John. And just one of the reasons why when I first found out about your book, I had to call you and talk to you. It was just so gripping and just amazing that to put it in plain, simple language, I don't know how you didn't pass the hell out right there, because I would have passed right the hell out. I mean, that pain had to be unbearable, and we all know what you're talking about. We don't want to talk about it because it's in the book. That's up to you, John, if you want to share it with the audience. But you know, when we do part 3 or whatever. But man, when that orderly, go ahead, Nikki.
It's funny that you bring that up, Ralph, because when I was in the hospital, my dad came up with my stepmother, in December, when I had to go get my kidney biopsy. It was my 3rd kidney biopsy. So I knew what the first 2 were like, and I was just, I had such anxiety. But it's funny you bring that up, because I had that thought about my dad, because once you read that, you could feel it, and you could actually visualize it like you were there. I'm like, God, what he went through, and I'm sitting here all worried about this thing in the damn hospital. I'm like, this is cakewalk. And that's all I kept doing was trying. I'm like, I can do this. If he could have did it, I can do it. I can do it. That's all I kept thinking.
Right,
Yeah.
right. He's an inspiration.
You know, I'm snickering here because I'm thinking the first thing they ask you is not how do you feel, where's your insurance, and what insurance do you have?
Yeah.
Or would you let us die in peace, for God's sakes? Let us die. You know, who cares? Yeah. I remember a story of a friend of mine. He lived in Philadelphia. He was my contractor. And he went over to Russia years ago. And he said he did a job, and he cut his finger off. It's common, you know, most contractors cut their thumbs off, he told me. So anyway, he said, you know, he's in the room, you know, like where everybody's waiting to get seen. And the nurse says to the woman, "You take the American." And she's like, "Why?" So she says, "Because he's got insurance." So even over there, wow. they know that you got to have insurance, you know. Take the American, you'll get paid, you know. But he said, meanwhile, the guy next to him, I don't know whether he got stabbed or he got shot or whatever it was, because blood all over the place and this and that. He goes, you know, I was feeling a little bit of pain with my finger, but nowhere compared to this poor guy, you know. But insurance, where's your insurance, you know? So that's what I was going to ask you, Pizza. When you were in Vietnam and you went through what you went through, every step, did they once ask you, do you have insurance?
No, not in the Army.
No.
I mean, I thought maybe they might have asked you, Pizza, because, you know, it just seems that that's the big thing.
What's from habit? No, they didn't ask.
You know, who's your broker? What's your insurance and this and that? Enough of that nonsense, you know.
That's funny. Uncle Sam, he was my broker.
You had the good insurance. Uncle Sam insured you, self-insured, like the city of New York, self-insured. Nothing like it.
Yep.
But hey, Nikki, I'm worried about you. Nikki, you there? Hello?
Just one
listen, I got a question to ask you.
Yeah.
So you were saying about your kidneys, right? And I know that's going to be another segment, but could you at least like tell the viewers that you know, kind of like what's not really going on, but just tell them that, reassure them that we're going to be out here in 2 more weeks or whatever it is, and we're all going to be together and we're all going to get healthy. So can you reassure them that you're going to get healthy, or what's going on?
Right? I'm like I tell my daughter, I'm a rock. I'm not going nowhere. We're going to get through it. And I'm hopeful that a miracle will happen, and I will be back to myself, and it's going to be a long, long road, but we're all going to get through it. We're going to get through it together. And we're a big team, and we'll get it. We'll get there. This lupus is just no joke. And when we talk about it, on our next segment about the whole lupus thing, I'm going to go back to what Ralph was saying, where there was a hand in God, because I would have never known. I was always perfectly healthy. I never even had a cavity. And it wasn't until the C-section where all this was happening. But I would have never known that I had it. It was only because I had a little 2-inch purple lesion on my left arm that wouldn't go away, that something just made me go to the dermatologist and check, and they biopsied it. And if it wasn't for the nurse practitioner to go a little step further of how the lupus, got diagnosed and then turned into from discoid to systemic. And now 8 years later, it's decided to attack my kidneys. So, and my joints, but we'll get to that. But yeah, we're going to get through it. I'm a rock, like I tell my daughter, and nothing's going to stop me. So I'm just going to keep going till my wheels fall off, and that's about it. And they're not falling off anytime soon.
You know something, I really truly, just wanted to take a second and thank, all you guys for your love and support, through everything I've been through. And just to let everybody out there know that I'm grateful for your phone calls, your texts, Facebook, and everything. I'm very grateful, very blessed, to have not only you guys, but to have so many people out there care. I clown around and I laugh and everything, but the reality is I'm very thankful to God, the doctors, the nurses, my wife, my family, my friends, just everybody. Sometimes it takes tragedies in life for you to realize how blessed you really are. And then you start to see, who's who and things. I just wanted to thank everybody, and I'm going to expose to all the ladies out there.
Okay.
And I'm getting right to the point here. I totally understand what you women are going through with bras. Okay? It's not comfortable, men. I'm speaking, men. It's not comfortable wearing a bra, all right? But we'll get into that in another show. But basically, I'm wearing a bra.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I'm wearing a bra, and it's a defibrillator to defibrillate my heart for the next 3 or 4 months. And my seamless ain't shapeless no more. That's all I gotta say about that. But women, ladies, I understand now when you say you got an itch, I'm gonna itch you. If you say the bras, go buy it. If my wife says I need to go get as many bras as you want, I'm not going to give her a hard time, because let me tell you something, guys. It ain't easy to have a bra, well, a surgical bra or whatever bra on you. So if you complain about your wife going to the store and complaining about how she spent on the bra and this and that, then you know what? Take her bra, put some boobs in there, and carry yourself for 2-3 days. and then let me know how you feel.
Hey, what's worse than that, Ray, is they tell men before their wives are now. They didn't do it back in my day, but nowadays they do. A lot of men do it. Is when their wives are gonna become pregnant, they tell them, the men, you get this fake pregnancy thing and wear it for a day and
Oh
see
my
what
God.
a woman has to go through for 9 months, especially when that baby gets big and carrying that weight around.
Oh, you
That's
no clue. No
I
clue.
know we're going past the time, but I got to tell you, the funniest thing was when I was in the hospital. Amory comes in, and they're giving me like this demonstration, on how to use this vest, and this and that. And so the woman shows me. She goes, "Well, men have to carry it a little bit below," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And so, she put this thing on her, and I could see the difference, obviously, but yeah, I have totally respect now for women during the summer when they say the bra's uncomfortable or it's too hot or, I need an adjustment or whatever. Totally understand now.
Yeah, we men don't know how great it is that you could just take your t-shirt off.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, women can't do that.
Nah, But
I know.
again, everybody, thank you so much for your love and
You're
prayers.
welcome, Ray.
That's the bottom
You're
line.
welcome. Thank you for your.
Going through some stuff, and you're always reaching out to me. I know that, and everybody. And you're one of those, all of you guys. I want to say thank you too. Like, we're all going through our own stuff, and yet we still take the time out to check on each other and, put our selfishnesses all aside, and we always look out for each other. So.
Well, I'm glad to be out of the hospital because I think I was getting a little crazy. I was, I had the nurses dancing and the doctors having a grand old time. We were celebrating another stone in life. Again, we make the best of our situations and we laugh and we want to make people laugh and let the people know that we're going through what they're going through.
Right.
Except we're not making, a couple $1 million like the actors out there. We're real people going what they go through every day.
Right.
That's right.
Everybody has a story.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. All right, Nick, we got to wrap it up, baby.
Yep. And, just remember, go out, Last Goodbye. It's on Amazon. We're on all the platforms. So remember to, subscribe and join us. And if you have any comments or you want to be on the show, reach out. But definitely go on Amazon, The Last Goodbye. Support our show. Support my father, John, with his book. It's one of the absolute best books I've ever read. It's 5 stars on Amazon. Go out, buy one, sit on a beach, sit at home, just take the time and read it. It's a great read. And sport veteran, he really deserves it.
It makes a great hospital gift out there for people that are sitting in bed.
Yep.
It's a great book to read. Yep. Believe me.
All right, guys. Until next
God
time.
bless.
God bless. Everybody.
God bless everybody. Have a good night.
Night. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Tune in 2 weeks. We'll have another show. Thank you, people. God bless everyone. Be safe. Good night.
Good night.